As darkness fell on April the 18th of 2020 in Portapique, Canada, a sinister force would emerge. And that sinister force was none other than Gabriel Wortman, a man who seemed so ordinary would soon turn into a cold-blooded mass murderer. He was wearing an RCMP uniform, driving an RCMP cruiser, and he was about to leave a trail of terror, devastation and heartbreak behind him. Moving house to house, setting fires, gunning down innocent people, he would soon become the most heinous mass murderer known to Canada. This is the horrific and horrendous case of Gabriel Wortman and the horrifying mass murder in Nova Scotia. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I hope you're all doing so well. Welcome back to another true crime and makeup episode. Oh yeah. Today we are covering the horrific monster that is Gabriel Wortman. Say less, okay? Like, I've told you a bit at the start, we just need to get into this case. This man is just evil to his core, and that is all you need to know. Before we get into this case, if you're new here, hi, my name is Anna. I'm a certified yapper, and one day decided I would come on the internet, yap about true crime and find a community of people like myself, and I found a lot of you. So if true crime's your jam and you enjoy watching someone paint their face, I highly suggest you subscribe down below, get that notification bell on, because I'm here for you twice a week, every single week on Wednesday and Sunday. And for anyone who is a regular here, you know the drill, get down in the comments, leave that like, leave a comment. It can be slander about this killer, it can be your case suggestions, it can be whatever you like. But without any further rambling and any further ado, let's get into the case of Gabriel Wortman. Hi. Welcome to my bedroom. Welcome to my humble abode. We're getting intimate, guys. Every other room in my house, the lighting does not play ball. So I've come into the bedroom, I've drew the curtains. Spicy. So I am currently sitting and filming on my bed, and can we tell that the cold flu, she's still lingering. She's still here, but we're gonna fight through because we have a creep of the week that we need to speak about. Strap in. Grab a little drink. I'm having a sugar-free Red Bull because I need it after this flu. I was taken down. I honestly, dead woman walking over here. I hope if anyone else has this like cold flu virus that's going around, sending you well wishes and honestly sending prayers your way, because for a split second I think I might have seen the light. No one shout at me for drinking Red Bull. I know it's bad for me. My mum keeps telling me it's going to make your blood sticky. I know that. But sometimes it's just needed. So let's waste no time and get into the horrific case of Gabriel Wortman, which, by the way, starting off, that name is unfortunate. And, you know, who better to have an unfortunate name than this unfortunate human being? So he was born on July the 31st of 1968 in New Brunswick of Canada. Canada, I'm sorry, I keep coming for you these days. And I know you have loads of amazing people, but for some reason I'm getting recommendations and they always seem to be in Canada, okay? I'm not pointing fingers, but we might have a problem. I'm just kidding, like how many serial killers are in Scotland? Too bloody many. Now let me tell you, Gabriel Wortman, we will learn later on in this case that he was a bit of a sleazeball. And I was kind of thinking, like, I hear Gabriel Wortman, and for some reason Ariel Castro is the vision that I get. I don't know if it's like Gabriel, Ariel, maybe I'm just like putting, you know, two and two together and I'm getting one person here, but that was the kind of person I was picturing. And then when I had a little look at his pics online, you know, hop on Google, Gabriel Wortman, what does he look like? I was both shocked but not shocked, because this guy looks like a worm. Stay with me, like we'll have a photo. He looks like a worm and he just gives off sleazeball weirdo vibes. There's no getting away from it. He did have one sibling by the name of Jeff Samuelson. However, Jeff was born in 1970, but he was put up for adoption like right away. So Gabriel for quite a while didn't even know that he had a sibling. And Jeff Samuelson, he wouldn't even meet his birth parents or his birth sibling until 2010. Now, I will say, finding out that he had a sibling later in his life messed with his head. Gabriel just could not compute this. He didn't understand why this was a big secret and a big lie. Apparently this put him on a path of complete anger and resentment. You know, because with these weirdos, it's always someone else's fault. You know, it's their fault I behaved the way that I did. Or, I mean, like, could you accept your circumstances and just push on and try and be a good person? I don't know. Also, I know how annoying my voice sounds, and believe me, I'm blowing my nose as often as I can to try and get rid of that nasalness, but she's here to stay and I refuse to miss another upload, so stick with, please. Now, credit where it's due, Gabriel's home life, it was pretty horrific, actually. Like, his childhood was not good. It was plagued by a lot of emotional abuse, physical abuse, well, according to him, physical abuse. But I would say more than anything, the thing that really seemed to bother him most was the emotional torment that his parents put him through, but specifically his father, Paul. Now, Paul was known to be a very angry and abusive man. He didn't really seem to care for Gabriel, and he didn't really seem to have much respect for his child. And yet he respected all the respect in the world, as they do. When Paul was kind of picked up on his abuse later in life, after what happened in Nova Scotia happened, he said, well, you know, I was raised in a really violent household as well. This is why I am the way I am. I was abused by my father, my grandfather was abused by his father. Like, it's a generational curse. This is why I am the way I am. Let me preface, right? I do not believe for a hot second that just because you were abused as a child means that you get to go on and abuse another child. Because there is such thing as breaking a generational curse, and if this is what you're deeming it to be, this generational curse that makes you a complete asswipe to your own children, you should be trying your best to make sure you provide a childhood that is safe and protected from any violence and from any abuse. So Paul, your excuse, it stinks, mate. Okay, I ain't buying it. And like I was saying, you know, his father, Paul, he states that this abuse has carried on throughout his life. His father abused him, his father's father abused him, so on, so on, so on. And one of Paul's brothers, Neil, he would later write a letter to Jeff Samuelson, Paul's other son, who, you know, he was unaware that Paul was his father until 2010. But he would write to Jeff and tell him, you know, this is a generational problem and this does go back all the way to George Wortman, which was one of their great-grandfathers. And Paul's abuse, it didn't just stop with Gabriel. He was abusive to his wife Evelyn. He was abusive to his own siblings. But when they were asked, you know, why did you never report this man? Why did you never tell someone what he was doing? They all stated that they were absolutely terrified of Paul because you never knew what this man was truly capable of. And one time in Gabriel's childhood, his father Paul, you know, this man that's just abusing everyone left, right and centre, he had got into an argument with him. They were arguing pretty bad, and then Paul almost just goes mute. After threatening violence, threatening to harm him, he goes mute and he forces Gabriel into his car. Now, Gabriel's obviously like, Dad, what's going on? Like, where are we going? Where are you driving me to? And Paul drives him down this dirt road, complete silence. Gabriel's freaking out because he genuinely believed at this point that his father was going to murder him. Could you imagine being a child and thinking that your parent is going to murder you? That they're taking you down this dirt road so they can't be seen murdering you? He was like saying to his dad, you know, like, please just answer me, tell me, where are we going? And Paul was silent the whole way. He just wanted to terrify Gabriel to his very core. Gabriel had also said on another occasion, his father Paul and him, they had been arguing pretty bad again, and Paul pretty much stood Gabriel in front of him, handed Gabriel a handgun and said, shoot me. Go ahead and shoot me. Just this emotional, traumatic torment. It's insane. And all of this is devastating, right? But this one just really hit my heart because it's just awful. So when Gabriel was 2.5 years old, he would carry around his favourite blanket, which I'm sure many of us can absolutely relate to. I know I had a favourite blanket, right? And one day Paul was like, do you know what? He's carrying around that blanket too much. I think it's time we get rid of it. And to Paul, getting rid of it wasn't taking it away gradually. It was taking it away all at once from Gabriel, ripping it away from him and setting it on fire right in front of his very eyes. That's sadistic. Like, you want your child to see that and be upset. You're going to derive enjoyment from watching their torture. It's horrible. And the thing is, when you're a child, these little safe things that you have, like a blanket or a teddy or, you know, a safe place in your home, when that's taken away, it's soul destroying. Those things mean so much to you. At this point, you must be thinking, like, wow, this childhood abuse couldn't possibly get any worse. It does. It actually does. I could not believe it when I was reading this. But when Gabriel was just a little boy, and I mean a little boy, he was younger than 10 years old, his father noticed how much Gabriel loved and adored their dog. The family dog. It's not Gabriel's dog, it is the family dog. But it seemed that Gabriel and the dog would spend the most time together. The dog always seemed to want to be with Gabriel. This drove Paul up the wall. Didn't mean to rhyme there. I am trying to be serious, but sometimes you're just a poet and you don't know it. Anyway, so Paul one day, he takes a dog and he takes Gabriel, and I'm very, very sorry to say this because I hate talking about anything animal related. If you don't want to hear this, please skip like maybe 15-20 seconds. But Paul takes Gabriel and the dog and he forces Gabriel to murder the dog. This little boy is younger than 10 years old. Could you imagine the emotional scarring and trauma that that would cause? He had to murder his little best friend. It was like Paul was taking away every single comfort that this little boy had. Like, how dare he have anything that makes him feel safe or feel happy? Obviously, just to make sure I'm being completely fair, I do need to tell you that a lot of the details, the childhood stories that I'm telling, they do come from Gabriel, but they also come from other family members. Paul's siblings themselves say that these are true. Now, Paul, however, he would claim that he would scream and he would shout and verbally berate his family, but he would never hit them. Screaming and verbally berating people doesn't make this situation any better. It still makes you look like a complete and utter, like, oh yeah, I emotionally traumatized them, but I never hit them. So, now as we know, this household that Gabriel is growing up in, it's very traumatic, it's very tumultuous, the environment is just bloody horrific, to put it in black and white. And one thing that just really seemed to steam Gabriel's clams from a young age right up until his adult life was the fact that his mother Evelyn never tried to protect him. He felt that she should have done a hell of a lot more to make sure that he felt safe and protected. Now listen, we don't know what was going on with Evelyn, okay? Was she being abused as well? Yes, according to Evelyn, she was being abused. She might have been completely terrified of Paul. Gabriel felt, as his mother, it was her duty to care for him. And he lost all respect for Evelyn, especially as he grew older, because he just thought, how could you let that happen to your baby? And due to this lack of protection and the feelings of, lack of care from his mother when he was growing up, Gabriel just resented women. He had no regard for women whatsoever, and if I'm completely honest, he just outright hated them. Ladies and gentlemen, please never ever try and conceal your eyebrows with a big brush because they'll be so unequal. I look comedic right now. I kind of look like I'm like all the time because of the way I've bloody filled in my eyebrows. Let's ignore them, please. So Gabriel, he goes on to attend the University of New Brunswick, where he would study psychology. Pretty impressive, not gonna lie. And whilst he was at university, he would meet a young woman who caught his eye, which is weird because, he hates women, can't stand them, but hey ho, where there's a will, there's a way. So this couple, they meet in the early 1990s. By 1992, they get married. Everything seems pretty perfect. He's not showing his hatred for women quite yet. Amazing. Maybe this is the woman to turn it all around for him. No. Because let's just remember that Gabriel does in fact hate all women, and the only reason he would want any woman in his life is to make their lives miserable, because that is what he knows and that is what he wants to do. So this couple's marriage would come to an end in 1995 with them getting a divorce, and his ex-wife had a lot to say about him, and none of it was good. His ex-wife stated that Gabriel drank a lot, and this was very, very often. This was almost like every single day. And when he would drink, he would turn into a completely different person, someone she didn't even recognise. He would be really scary and threatening. He would smash things up, he would shout and swear in her face, and on several occasions he even brought out his gun and threatened his wife. Stand up guy, like get him on a dating show, we'd all be so lucky to have him. Honestly, like what a pathetic loser. See, if you hate women, just don't involve yourself in their lives. Like, oh, we don't need you, sir. Keep yourself to yourself. And listen, same goes for crappy women who are also horrible to men, who hate men. Just stay away from men. There's too many good men out there that do not deserve your crap, vice versa. Now, as time went on in their marriage before they did divorce, she said that Gabriel just became more increasingly unpredictable. You didn't know when he was going to flip his switch. He could say he's gone out for a food shop and then he comes back and he's like as drunk as a skunk, like absolutely rat-assed. And he would just come in the house and start on his wife and start berating her, and she just decided one day, I can't live like this, I am leaving you. And more power to her, because we know women and men in these situations, it is so difficult to leave your abuser. So difficult. And it's something like up to 7 attempts to leave an abusive relationship or marriage. People try to leave around 7 times before they'll actually successfully leave an abusive relationship. It's never as black and white as people make it seem, and the people who do make it seem black and white are the very same people that's never actually lived through an abusive relationship. So in 2000, Gabriel, he goes to a psychiatrist, and when I heard this, I was like, love that. Is he going to try and work on himself and like better himself? And the psychiatrist tells him, you know, you have a very narcissistic personality. Like, no Sherlock, like, we know. Later doctor visits would conclude the exact same thing, but he also had hypertension, and they also confirmed that he had severe alcoholism. Again, we already know that. I could have diagnosed him myself, but I ain't no doctor. So then, on May the 1st of 2001, Gabriel Wortman, Little Worm Wortman, he would meet a woman by the name of Lisa Banfield, which, you know, again, he hates women, so why is he trying to meet one so bad? But they would meet at a pub called the Thirsty Duck, which sounds so cute. So on this first date that Lisa and Gabriel had went on, he would show up with a dozen long-stemmed red roses, and Lisa said this honestly gave her the ick. She did not like it at all, and honestly, that is so me coded. I think that's the kind of thing that would make me be like, oh, that's a bit much, you know? So Lisa's thinking like, oh, this is all a bit showy for a first date, but I mean, he has went to all of this effort and maybe I should just give him a chance. Like, maybe he actually deserves a chance. Lisa, babe, honestly, he doesn't. Just run. So later that evening, I'm not sure if Gabriel was, you know, going to take Lisa home or whatever, but they're in his vehicle and they would get rear-ended. Not that kind of rear-ending, dirty dog, but the vehicle gets rear-ended, and I'm expecting like a Ben Stiller in Friends, like that kind of blow up where it's like nice guy goes rogue. That's what I'm expecting. But he kept his cool. He was like, oh, you know, no problem, don't worry, it's all right. Like, playing this nice guy and playing this nice guy very, very well. And Lisa, witnessing this, she's like, oh my god, wow, like, he's so calm in such a crazy situation. This is such a nice trait for someone to have, like, who doesn't just fly off the handle. But we all know this was a mask that this man was wearing, and he would fly off the handle many a time. So within this time, Gabriel goes on and he works and trains as a denturist, which I believe is actually someone who makes dentures, not actually like a dentist. if that makes sense. So he's making like teeth and stuff like that. So he trains to become one of those, and you know, it's somewhat successful in his training because he would go on to open his own clinic in Dartmouth of Nova Scotia. And his clinic seemed to be doing well. He was able to hire multiple employees. But after the clinic opens, their relationship, it seems like it's just moving very quickly from there on out. And within 3 months, Lisa, she was living with Gabriel Wortman. They had got a home together. And at first this is like a dream, you know, this seems like the perfect man. He is sweet, he's caring, and he is very, very loving. But this would not last long. So in 2001, the Wortman family, they all go on a trip to Cuba. Now in this trip was, you know, Gabriel's family, his uncles, father, mother, and then Lisa Banfield's girlfriend. Now on this trip, suddenly Gabriel, he just loses it with his father. Like, he is angry. He brutally assaults his own father, rendering him unconscious. And apparently the reason that this whole fight had even broken out was because Paul was denying his treatment of Gabriel when Gabriel was a child. And Gabriel was getting so angry that Paul was making him out to be a liar. He lost it. He snapped and he just went for him and didn't stop until he went unconscious. Like, he was battered and bruised. Now Lisa, seeing this, obviously it was like a red flag, but at the same time Gabriel had told her about his childhood, about what he had endured. And it's not that she felt that Paul deserved it, but she could also see why Gabriel became so angry. But she was also frightened that he had that anger within him. So after the assault has taken place and Paul, you know, comes back around, like he's conscious again, he goes over to Lisa and he says to Lisa, I was a to my wife, I was a to my son, and Gabriel's gonna do the same thing to you. And he actually urged Lisa to leave Gabriel. But of course, I mean, Lisa's heard about Gabriel's childhood. Can she really trust Paul? And although he's told her this, and it does make her think for, you know, a second, ultimately she wants to stand by her man. Also, I know it's not about the makeup, but how freaking gorgeous is that eye glitter? Oh, love it. And obviously, I'm sure we can all understand from Lisa's point of view why it would be difficult to just take Paul at face value, knowing his history, but also she's never experienced this side of Gabriel. As far as she's aware, this anger was only brought out by his own father. He's never directed this anger at her. This would be until 2002, where he would horrifically beat her after a party. I actually just called this damn place Portapeak, and I'm just sure that it's not right, so I'm just going to do a little Google. How to pronounce.com. Yep, I'll accept the recommended cookies. Here we go.
Portapeak.
Portapeak. What did I say? I don't know. Portapeak. Anyways, Portapeak. So what had happened is a colleague of Gabriel's who worked at the clinic, she had invited the couple over to her cottage for the evening. There was like a little party going on. But at some point, Lisa, she gets tired and she's thinking, do you know what, I'd really just rather be home, get in my PJs, settle down for the night and go to bed. So she tells Gabriel, you know, I'm really, really tired. But Gabriel seems to be set off by this because Gabriel doesn't want to leave. And Lisa can sense this, that Gabriel doesn't want to go. So she says, well, why don't I take the Jeep? I'll drive myself home and you can just stay here as late as you want. Like, it's no big deal. I'll just leave without you and you can enjoy the rest of the evening. But you know what it's like with these people? Like, you give them good resolutions to their problem, but it's still not enough because everything sets them off. So Lisa, she goes, she gets into the Jeep and she is just taking off in the Jeep when suddenly the door swings open and Gabriel jumps into the passenger seat and he just starts beating Lisa while she is driving. She is being beat around the head so brutally that she's crying so much she can't even see, and she has to just like emergency stop that Jeep and run away. So Lisa, she heads off into the woods where she's trying to hide from Gabriel, but he ultimately comes out, hunts her in the woods and then drags her back to the car, and she would only get away when a group of people from the party, they showed up. Now, the woman who had invited the couple to the cottage that night, she did say that she witnessed Gabriel dragging Lisa by the hair in like the parking lot, and she said that the look on his face It scared the hell out of me. And what is just shocking is that after this, the police were called. Police were requested to come to this scene, but somehow nothing came of it. Now, when Lisa had returned to the cottage, she could see Gabriel taking the 4 tyres off of her Jeep and throwing them over a bank. And he's like, right, come inside, like, we're going to sort this. But Lisa stands firm and she says, nope, I'm going to wait here. My niece is coming to get me. I phoned her. She knows what's happened and she's on her way. And after this incident, Lisa, she did move in with her sister for a period of time. But as all these sick psychos do, Gabriel Wortman, he would not leave Lisa alone. He was coming round. He was apologising, promising never to do it again. He was like, I was drunk. I'll give up drinking. This isn't me, Lisa. You know it's not me. Nah, 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 nah. But he was providing these deep promises and apologies, and he was getting upset, and Lisa thought, you know what, this man really regrets what he did, and it was just one time. So she would take him back. But as we all know, this isn't a one-time thing with these people. It never ever is. It's never just once. It will be a constant. So Lisa, she has moved back in with Gabriel, and the abuse is just escalating constantly. He was constantly punching her, kicking her, and he would do it in places that would be covered by clothing, like arms, legs, further up the leg towards the thigh, around the midsection, so no one would see what he was doing. And if for some reason she did wind up with marks on her face, on her neck, on her hands, he would not allow her to leave the house until he had seen that every single mark was covered with makeup. Not just that, but on several occasions, Gabriel Wortman would put a gun to Lisa's head and threaten to pull the trigger. Her family were terrified that one day they were going to have to bury their sibling, their daughter, because they knew how much danger she was in, but she couldn't leave. And this man, anytime she did attempt to leave, he threatened to murder her entire family. And she felt like her family's life was in her hands, and she felt like she had to stay to protect them. And as you can imagine, as time went on, Gabriel, he was just controlling every element of Lisa's life. Who she could see, when she could see them, what she could and couldn't do. He even made her quit her job at RBC. At first he claims that, you know, you can come and work with me at the clinic, it'll be really good, we can work together, it'll make it easier for us to take time off and get trips in together. He painted this idyllic picture, but that wasn't the reason. Because if Lisa came and worked at that clinic, he would watch her every single move. He would know who she speaks to day in and day out, and he would also get to control her money. Because Lisa wasn't getting a monthly paycheck like everyone else. He would give her a little bit of cash in hand, enough to get by for a little while. He controlled every element. Now Lisa, she had other vehicles that she had bought while she had been married to a different person. These vehicles were hers, she had bought them, but Gabriel said, you know, maybe you should just sell them and I'll buy you a Merc, like a Mercedes. This sounds great. So Lisa sells her cars, Gabriel buys her a Mercedes, but it's under his name. He's controlling the money, he's controlling her transport. If Lisa left him, she feels like she would have nothing. And this is what these abusers do. They will strip you of your identity and they will make you feel like you are nothing without them. They will make you believe that your life will fall apart if you leave them. They will leave you feeling like you have absolutely nothing. You have no money, no transport, you won't have a home. This is the stuff that they tell you, but I swear and I promise, if you leave them, your life will come together. And if anyone out there is struggling in a relationship, coercive control, physical, verbal abuse, whatever it may be, you are worthy of getting out. You are worthy of a better life. You deserve more, and this horrible person does not deserve you, and they will never ever change. And if you are struggling, please reach out to someone, please talk to someone, because you do not deserve to live life this way. You deserve a happy, fulfilled life, and I am sending so much love and so much prayer your way. Now Lisa, she would wait on this man hand and foot. It was like this man could not do a single thing for himself. How dare he have to lift a finger when there's a woman in the house? She would cook for him, she would clean for him, give him foot rubs and massages whenever he wanted. And whenever he wasn't satisfied with her work, He would punish her. He would take away her phone, her car keys, her salary. Crazy stuff. Gabriel would constantly remind Lisa that she would be nothing without him, that her life will end if he is not in it. She needs him. She doesn't deserve him. He's too good for her. Like all this crap that is just so not true. He would also decide when Lisa can go and visit her family, and he would go with Lisa because he has to make sure she's not telling her family what it is that he's doing to her. And whilst around Lisa's family, he would grope her in front of them, laughing, loving the fact that he's embarrassing his wife and making everyone feel uncomfortable, showing every person in that room that he is the one in control. Not only was this man an abusive asshole, he was just as vile as they come. He was cheating on his wife all the time and yet accusing her of cheating. And a lot of the time he was cheating on his wife with his own patients. And before we even dive into that, whenever he would have sex with Lisa, it was all on his terms. Now, he was obsessed with porn, okay? It was never about Lisa's needs and what she would want. It was about what he wanted. He would almost force Lisa to recreate these like pornos with him for his own sick pleasure. But Lisa's desires and needs, they were a second thought. Now, in June 2010, Gabriel Wortman, he would be investigated by Halifax Regional Police, and the reason for this is because he put out a threat against his own parents. He had told one of his uncles that he was going to drive over to his mother and father's house and he was going to murder them. So Gabriel's father had spoken to the police, and he says that, you know, they are majorly concerned because Gabriel, as far as they know and have witnessed in the past, he has pistols, he has like long-barreled guns. He's a very dangerous man. He also told the police that he held these firearms without a license and they should probably check it out because, you know, why he's got those guns, we don't really know. You know, he's using them to threaten everyone, but could he use them for something else? To be confirmed. But the police say to Paul, you know, his father, they're like, well, you know, you haven't seen the guns in 5 years, so why would we waste time getting a search warrant where we might go over there and the guns might not even be there anymore? Might not even be there anymore. Now, if you think something might not be there, the surefire way to know that they're not there is to check. Who cares if they're not there anymore? Just bloody check. Do your job. So in 2013, a neighbour, they had spoken to the RCMP. It was a neighbour in Portapeak, and the reason that they had spoke to the RCMP was due to the fact that they had witnessed Gabriel abusing his spouse, and they had also witnessed a large cache of illegal firearms that Gabriel had somehow obtained. Also, just in case you don't know what the RCMP is, because I didn't when I actually was looking into this case, it is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So ultimately this report comes in, they're concerned for the spouse of Gabriel and they're also worried about the illegal firearms that he holds. But the RCMP says to this neighbour, this complaint hasn't come from the spouse and we can't investigate it unless it came from the spouse who you're saying could be being abused. So basically the RCMP, they do nothing, and after this complaint, the abuse toward Lisa would just escalate even further. Now, in the years following, neighbours had noticed that Wortman had become increasingly paranoid. He had become increasingly controlling, if he could be even more controlling than he already was. But they just noticed shady behaviour from this man. People were saying that he was a chronic petty thief and somewhat of a career criminal who never got caught for a lot of the things he actually did. Now, neighbours, they noticed that Gabriel seemed to be stockpiling propane tanks and gasoline. He would also brag about having lime and muriatic acid for bodies. Alarming. And not only this, but Gabriel Wortman, he would dress up as an RCMP police officer and like wander the neighbourhood and like role play with himself, like pretending to be a police officer. Almost childlike, but scary. Like he could almost believe that he was an officer. And then in 2018, there was a lot of reports coming into the police from patients of Gabriel Wortman's. They were saying that he was acting very inappropriately with the patients, and in particular, he was targeting his most vulnerable patients. He was exchanging sex acts for dental services, and it was always the vulnerable patients that he would target. And then we come to COVID-19, the worldwide pandemic that every single person was affected by, some more than others, absolutely. Gabriel Wortman, he said that he greatly struggled with the COVID-19 pandemic. Didn't we all? He was sad because his business had to be closed because it was seen as non-essential, and this apparently really affected his mental health, which I'm sure it did. My mum also had to close her business down whilst COVID was happening. It affected her mental health, but she was a good person who just, tried to push by and push on. But Gabriel Wortman felt like he was the most important person. How should his practice be shut down? Like, it should still be open, and, woe is me. And whilst I fail to have any sympathy for Gabriel Wortman himself, my heart just goes out to Lisa Banfield at this point. Because we know in the UK, in the US, across the globe, everywhere, abusive deaths of spouses, of children, was on the rise because they had no break from their abusers. Sometimes that abuser going to work or the abuse victim going to work was the only bit of respite that they were getting. And when the whole world was put on lockdown, this was the perfect opportunity for abusers because no one would really notice if someone was not communicating for a couple of days. It was just an awful, awful, horrendous time, and for people and women, men, children, whoever in Lisa's situation, this was the worst thing that could ever have happened. Throughout the period of lockdown, Gabriel Wortman, his alcohol abuse that skyrocketed, it was worse than ever. His abuse was worse than ever. Lisa Wortman had said that Gabriel was convinced that he was going to die. He believed this was all a government sort of thing and that we were all being targeted, which, pretty sure a lot of people feel like that. Gabriel Wortman became consumed by the pandemic, and he believed that the Prime Minister would start controlling everybody's money. So he had withdrawn almost $500,000 of his money. He was hiding it. He was stockpiling food and drink, anything, which again, I'm sure a lot of people did. But Gabriel had like 6 different houses or, shelters that he had, and all 6 of these houses were all stockpiled. Now, one of Gabriel Wortman's most main hobbies and interests was collecting and obtaining RCMP memorabilia, and in particular, RCMP cruisers. So Wortman, he would purchase these decommissioned RCMP cruisers and he would modify them to look like the authentic vehicle. So he was purchasing these cruisers through government surplus auctions. He was then ordering the authentic decals to put onto the RCMP cruiser to make it look like the real deal. And they really, really did. And devastatingly in the timeline, we are coming to April the 18th of 2020 when this horrendous mass murder would take place. So like I said, it's April the 18th of 2020 and this is in Portapeak. Gabriel and Lisa, they are attending a party, and as per usual, Gabriel drinks far too much because he can't handle his booze, and he starts on Lisa. So the couple, they get into this really long-winded argument and Lisa is just embarrassed yet again. Same different day, can't be bothered with it. She decides that she just wants to go home to their cottage. So the couple, they head home. Lisa, she goes straight to her bed, hoping that, Gabriel's just going to sleep this off and leave her the hell alone. So Lisa has just started dozing off. It is around 10 p.m. when suddenly she is awoken by Gabriel. So her eyes ping open, and the minute they open, Gabriel just starts to brutally beat Lisa. And Lisa notices he's wearing an RCMP uniform, like an illegit uniform that he had been able to purchase online. So Wortman, he grabs Lisa, gets her up, grabs her shoes, forces her outside, And whilst they're going outside, he's like, oh, watch your feet on the gasoline that I've sprayed over the entire house, Lisa. What do you mean? Once Gabriel has Lisa where he wants her, he starts to fire the gun near her feet, like basically making Lisa dance to avoid the bullets. He then proceeds to grab the shoes off of Lisa's feet. He then drags her by the hair over to the RCMP vehicle, where he would just throw her right into the back. Now, he was armed with a Cole Law Enforcement grade carbine rifle, a Ruger Mini 14 rifle, a Glock GmbH semi-automatic pistol, and a Ruger P89 semi-automatic pistol. So Lisa, she looks out the window of this RCMP vehicle, and when she looks behind her, she sees that the cottage is completely engulfed in flames. Not only this, she sees Gabriel continue to pour gasoline over a shed nearby the cottage, as well as his truck, and light that on fire. Now luckily, the doors of the vehicle that Lisa had been thrown into, they were left open. So Lisa, she sees the opportunity and she takes it. She runs out of that vehicle and escapes into the woods where she would hide. Now a neighbour nearby, they've noticed the flames and they're concerned for their neighbours, so they call 911. Now the neighbour who had noticed the flames and who had contacted 911, this was Lisa McCulley. And she was so concerned for her two neighbours that she would leave her house, leaving her own sleeping children in the house. She would run over to the cottage to try and check on Gabriel and Lisa. But when she arrived, Gabriel immediately shot and killed her. Wortman did not even flinch when he did this, and he just hops in his RCMP vehicle and he drives over to the home of Greg and Jamie Blair. Now Jamie is Greg's wife. I just wanted to put that in there because obviously it's a unisex name, so just so you know who it is I'm speaking about. Now Greg and Jamie, they lived on the next road, and Gabriel, he proceeds to immediately kill Greg. He then chases Jamie into the house, through the house. Jamie runs up the stairs, she gets her two sons and she hides them in a bedroom and she locks the door and immediately calls 911. Now she's got her sons to go under the bed. She wants to make sure nothing is going to happen to them. And it's just devastating, but Gabriel Wortman, he sprays gunfire through this door and he shoots and kills Jamie. Her two sons just lying under the bed and they see their mother die right in front of them. But luckily these little boys, they are smart, and what they do is they see an opportunity to jump out of that bedroom window and they run to a neighbour's for help. The neighbour's house that they run to is the McCulleys. Lisa McCulley, who was Wortman's first victim. They go in and they hide with Lisa's children. Gabriel Wortman, he then moves on to the home of Frank and Dawn Gulinshin, where he shot and killed them both in cold blood and then just set their home on fire like they were nothing. Now another couple who live nearby to Frank and Dawn, they see the flames, they see carnage is going on, they're concerned about their neighbours, so they hop in their car and they drive over to Frank and Dawn's to make sure that they're okay. This town of helpful neighbours who care about each other, putting their lives at risk to make sure each other is okay, only to be met by this sick and twisted monster. So the couple, they're on their way over in their vehicle, but they slow down immediately when they see this RCMP vehicle, and more specifically when they see who is driving this vehicle. Because they knew Gabriel Wortman, they knew the kind of man he was, and they knew that he was not part of the RCMP. So what the hell was he doing? Now the couple, they go to turn their vehicle around. As they do this, Gabriel releases two shots. Two shots. One of them hits the shoulder of the man in the vehicle and the second one grazes his forehead. But luckily he is able to drive away and speed away and get to safety. Gabriel Wortman, he then goes on to murder a retired couple, Peter and Joy Bond. Now Corey Ellison and his brother Clint, they hear a noise, something's going on, so they go to check it out. When they come over to check on the retired couple, immediately Gable? Who the hell's Gable? So Corey Ellison and Clint, they come over to check on the retired couple, and immediately Gabriel, he releases fire and he instantly shoots and kills Corey Ellison. Clint, he then runs away into the woods nearby, again trying to seek safety. Next, Gabriel would target the home of Jolene and Aaron Tuck, and also the home of their teenage daughter Emily Tuck. Now Gabriel knew this family well because Gabriel had tried to buy their home off them, but ultimately he was rejected. And how dare you reject Gabriel Wortman, you know, the most important man in the world in his eyes. So he goes to the Tuck home and devastatingly he is able to murder all three of them. He then moves on and he murders Elizabeth Joanne Thomas as well as John Zal. So RCMP police, they arrive in Portapeak by 10:26 p.m. and this is the real RCMP, not just Gabriel playing pretend. And when they get there, they cannot believe what they are seeing. There is buildings on fire, there is dead bodies, there's wounded witnesses. And luckily these witnesses who have survived, they are able to tell the police who this gunman is. The fact that he's dressed up as an RCMP officer and driving in an RCMP cruiser. So at this point, they know it's Gabriel Wortman. They know who it is they're looking for. So even more police arrive and, you know, they're all kind of chatting, they're brainstorming, and they come to the conclusion that this mass shooter, he's probably just going to commit suicide after he commits these murders. So like, you know, probably no reason to worry. But just in case, they establish perimeters, they search homes, they bring in police dogs, and they also station a roadblock on what they believe is the only road out of town. However, there is also a dirt road that leads out of town that did not have a roadblock because they didn't even know it existed. And you can probably guess that this dirt road that leads out of the town, this was utilised by none other than Gabriel Wortman. And just shortly after 11 p.m, he arrives in Derbert, which is a small town about 24 kilometres northeast of Portapeak. Once he's there, he hides his vehicle behind a welding shop and he would remain there for more than 6 hours. And at 5:32 a.m. on April the 19th, he left driving north. So by 6:29 a.m, the killer, he has now arrived in Wentworth, which is around 40 kilometres from Derbert. Now once he's there, he stops on Hunter Road, and the reason that he stops there is because this was the home of a couple that he knew. So whilst he's here, he would murder Alana Jenkins as well as Sean McLeod before then setting their home on fire. After this, he would then murder their neighbour, Tom Bagley. Now it's around the same sort of time where Lisa Banfield, she would emerge from the woods in Portapeak that she has been hiding in all night, terrified for her life. Once she's out of the woods, she heads over to a neighbour's home so she could call 911. So she calls 911 and she identifies her husband as the shooter. She gives the name, their address, what he's wearing, what he is driving, literally every single thing they would need to be able to locate him if they came across him. So the police, they jump on Twitter, right? They're like, let's alert the public. So the police tweet and they say that there is an active shooter in Portapeak and basically says that it's concealed to the area of Portapeak, so everyone here should stay inside. But what they don't realise is this gunman is now 50 kilometres away. He is no longer in Portapeak. The people in Portapeak at the moment are safe. And they don't even, warn any other towns that, he could possibly be there because they didn't realise there was another dirt road out of town. So Wortman, he leaves Wentworth and he would head south on Highway 4. Now around 9:43 a.m, near Wentworth Provincial Park, he slowed down and through his open window, he would shoot Lillian Hislop, someone who was just walking down the street. At 10:08 a.m, pretending to be an RCMP police officer, he would pull over a vehicle of Kristen Beaton. Kristen Beaton, she was a pregnant woman, she was pregnant with her second child, but when she is stopped by Gabriel, he shoots her dead. He would then shoot Heather O'Brien, who was just driving by. Gabriel, he then heads south, driving through Truro, and he stopped around 10:25 a.m. and the stop, it was very brief. He was outside a gas station and then he's just sitting there for a little bit before heading south again on Highway 2. So RCMP constables Chad Morrison and Heidi Stevenson, they radio each other and they decide that they're going to meet at the intersection of Highway 2 and Highway 224. So Constable Morrison, he arrives first, and then just a few moments later, who he believes to be Constable Stevenson pulls up alongside him. But very quickly he would realise that in this RCMP vehicle is not Constable Stevenson, it is Gabriel Wortman. Gabriel Wortman, he then shot Constable Morrison multiple times, but somehow Constable Morrison, he was able to escape, he was able to get away, and he called for backup. So Gabriel Wortman, he continues, he speeds off heading south on Highway 2, and as he's driving down this way, he collides with Constable Stevenson, who was on their way to meet Constable Morrison. Now, Constable Stevenson gets out the vehicle, they are badly injured, and Gabriel Wortman would shoot and kill them right there and then. Wortman then shot and killed Joey Webber, who was just driving by, before then stealing his 2007 Ford Escape. At 11:06, Gabriel Wortman, he would arrive at the home of a professional acquaintance by the name of Gina Goulet, and he would immediately shoot and kill Gina. He then changes out of his RCMP uniform and he then steals her Mazda 3. After he's stolen her vehicle and gotten changed, he would then head south down Highway 102. So Gabriel, he's driving and he's driving toward Enfield, where he decides that he needs to refuel the car, so he would stop at a gas station. As he's sitting at this gas station, RCMP tactical police team, they show up because they're just refueling, okay? They don't know Gabriel Wortman's going to be there, but they immediately spot him. So the officers, they get out of their RCMP vehicle, they're approaching Gabriel in this Mazda 3 vehicle, and he starts getting really erratic, he starts lashing out, he's raising up a gun that he had stolen from Constable Stevenson, who he had murdered, and he goes to shoot the police, but before he can, this police team take this POS down. They shoot him dead right there and then, ending the Nova Scotia Massacre. There was a trail of devastation and heartbreak left behind after this horrific mass murder that Gabriel Wortman had committed. There was a lot of uproar regarding the RCMP police, the fact that they had done so much wrong and that they had warned people in Portapeak but no one else outside of that. They hadn't done proper checks to make sure that they had put up roadblocks everywhere. And also, they didn't use the alert system to alert people of this active shooter who could be in any area. It took them so long before they announced to the public that there was an active shooter going around. And I will say, after this mass murder, there was changes in the Canada gun law, but ultimately it was too late. And as always, I just want to do a 360 and bring it right back to the victims of this case whose lives were stolen from them over the course of that 2-day massacre. I am sending so much love and prayer to those families because this didn't happen that long ago. Okay, we're only just in 2025, this was 2020. So please, I know all of you will, but please remember the victims' names who we've discussed. Please send love and prayer to their families, because my God, do they need it. And I hope Gabriel Wortman is just burning and rotting in hell for all eternity. My loves, that is the end of another true crime and makeup episode. I do hope this one was interesting and educational for you. I know it's such a sad case, it always is when it's mass murders. I mean, any murder's terrible, but so many innocent people just going about their life or just sleeping in their bed to be attacked by someone so horrific and heinous is just awful. Before you go, please do make sure you engage with this video in some way. Please make sure you leave a like, especially leave a comment if you haven't already. Subscribe, get that notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload every Wednesday and Sunday. All the details that you need, social media handles, details of products used on my face today, as well as my case suggestion doc, all of that is linked down below in the description for you. Please, please, please remember, as always, be a good person, do not be a bad person, stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!